Hey, this is Romilly with Golden Circle Designs, and we're going to start with our first lesson for stitching today for general freestyle embroidery. What we're going to do is we're going to start with an away waist knot. We're working on running stitch today, and we're going to an away waist knot you can find in my other video on away waist knots, and I'll put a link in the bottom. We're going to pick one of the lines on our ticking. Well, I'm going to pick one of the lines on my ticking. You can use whatever fabric you're using. And I'm going to, this is with my right hand, I'm going to start with my away waist knot, so there's my knot. And then I'm going to pick this line. And we're going to make a running stitch, which is just a series of straight stitches that make a dotted line. Now, I can do this with two hands and by stabbing it down, and then using my other hand to bring it back up. You'll see I'm keeping my right hand on top of the fabric and my left hand below. You can do it the other way as well. When you're working with your right hand, you're going to be working from right to left. This is because when you're working in hand, or you're working on something else with a hoop in your hand, you can do it as a sewing method, which is just keeping your needle on the top of the fabric and just going up and down for several stitches and then pulling it through. If you're holding the hoop in your hand and you don't want to use two hands, you can use one with the stabbing method, bringing it down. Oops, I think I bumped the camera. And then bringing it back up. Oops. This way. Moving your hand back and forth. Stitches can be wide, boy, I'm bumping everything. Stitches can be narrow. When it comes down to it, for a standard running stitch, I tend to prefer to keep my hand above the fabric and use a sewing method. When you're playing with this, play with keeping your stitches even. Play with changing the length of them. I made them shorter here. For pretty much all stitches, the shorter they are, the easier they'll go around curves. You can even make really big stitches, followed by little ones. So that's the right hand. Left-handed stitches, pretty much the same thing. Let's switch to the blue. And I'm going to tie a knot. I'm doing a waist knot on this side as well, so we'll start that up here. And now I'm going to bring it on the next row, and with my left hand, grabbing the fabric, the thread a little bit differently because the tripod is in the way from this position for the camera. And I've already bumped it plenty. So again, you can work it with two hands. Down and up and down and up. Generally, when I'm working a line stitch like this, I will use an erasable ink pen or something where the line will come out if it's going to be dotted, or I will actually draw the dotted lines and cover them with thread. And again, you can work it with one hand, just making a sewing motion. So that you follow the lines that you draw, which means it can go in a circle or wherever you want it. And it also keeps it from doing this up and down thing that you'll sometimes get if you just do stitches back and forth. You can stitch. See how just coming back and forth makes an interesting pattern. If you wanted to do lines of these, you can put your stitches, make some of them longer and some of them shorter, and line them up in rows to make patterns. That's called pattern darning, but it's just a running stitch. Little tiny running stitches are used for hand quilting. They're also used for stitching clothes together. If you're making hand-stitched garments, they're going to be very small. They're not as strong as some of the other stitches for sewing, but it's a basic stitch. And then when you're done, you can just flip the work over the back and weave your thread in. Now, once you've got a straight running stitch gone, you can flip over and make it a double running stitch just by reversing and filling in the gaps. This is sometimes easier if you're right-handed or left-handed. You can flip your fabric over so that it's upside down, so that you're always working with your dominant hand, which makes life a lot easier. So, and that makes a straight line, sort of. Even though you're generally going down, up and down in the same hole, it will sometimes change angles. So you can do the double running stitch that way. And let's see, I brought that up. Probably shouldn't have done it that way. Or if you're ambidextrous, like I just did, you can switch your hand when you go back to the other way. So this was not stitched with the right hand, and then to go back the other way without. That's probably a good thing. Pulling it tight, too tight, can cause issues. You can loosen the stitch back up when you do that. I pierced my thread. So it can go down, and then to make a double running stitch, it would come at the length of this. Changing the length of stitches for double running stitch, not as effective because it turns into a single line. I hope that helped, and I hope you had fun practicing it, and we'll come back next week for another stitch. Have fun stitching.